What's up, everyone? Spartan 1000 here, and you know what time it is. We're getting into a build video. It has taken me quite some time to set up a good mid-game build video, or one that's going to be very good for you that you can obtain in Act 1. And by the time you're in Act 2, you should be rolling every fight as your main character. This build is going to be a light side leaning build. Most of the abilities are light side, so this won't be for darkness users. I do want to do a darkness user build, and that'll be on my next playthrough. So I'll be pushing that out as well. But for this one, the reason why I think this build video is going to be very good is because you will be playing like a tank. You will have damage mechanics to assassinate people, killing them with one card, or potentially chaining to multiple people with the quick ability. And then you'll be able to heal your teammates as well, and you'll have some AoE stuff in there as well in case you need to burst a group of enemies out. So you'll have a lot of utility, a plenty of ways to get kills and to react with the environment, because this is a game where you have to make use out of the majority of the environmental mechanics to get the best turns possible. If you just use your cards, you're going to find out that the missions are going to be a lot difficult after some point, because a lot of times enemies will be set up around an environmental thing, and you'll need to hit that to make sure you can drop them without wasting a card that you're going to use for somebody else, especially when you start to deal with bosses and then like leaders of a group and then the actual minions. But let's jump into the cards. So the way this is going to work for build videos in here, I will be discussing the actual cards, and then I'll go over the passives. So Holy Flame is one that's not going to take you too long to acquire. You should easily be able to get a bunch of these in one. Just continue to make light decisions whenever you're talking to people, and just keep opening those gamma coils. Eventually, you will get Holy Flame. When you go to level up Holy Flame, it's going to deal a fixed amount of damage to the target's health. It's single target. It doesn't knock them back, but it does pretty good damage in the early game. And you'll be able to have the option of healing yourself or an ally with this ability as well. So this is kind of also supporting that healer side. So if you decide that if you draw this card and you're like, okay, I don't really want to kill anybody because I have a teammate who's dying, you can just drop a heal on that person. So you'll always have use for this card. And then it's an attack, so it can help you build heroism as well. One of the modifications you can put on it whenever you get into that portion of building up your character is you can have it so it does extra damage to the target's maximum health. And that upgrade to me is the better one, because there's a lot of enemies that'll start to become less like minions. Minions are one-shotted by everything, but the people slightly above minions have a fixed amount of health. This will help you also one-shot them. It won't work all the time, but if you have characters that can buff your damage, like Doctor Strange or Nico, you can get away with some one-shots with this ability. So I highly recommend Holy Flame for Act 1, Act 2 light sort of build to go off of. Then we have Holy Spark. Holy Spark is one of my favorites to see drawn, mainly because of the two innate things that it starts with in its description. It has Cure and Quick. So Cure is a way for you to get rid of any negative status ailments that are applied to your teammates. So if they do weaken, vulnerable, if they bind you, any sort of negative status effect that they apply to you, even dazed, you can use this instead of using the item cards to cure yourself. So I'd recommend using the item card to cure yourself over using this, because the item cure cards are free. It's a free action, whereas this is going to be an actual action. On the other hand, it has some offensive capabilities too. If you modify this one to make it do the most damage possible for people with full health, you'll be getting an extra 108 damage where I'm at in the game. And this has been one-shotting so many ads that are not minions. And if they are minions, it's still worth doing it to them, because Quick allows you to get that player card, not this card back, but the card that you use for that turn refunded. Each turn you have 3 actions you can make. If you kill somebody with a card that says Quick, you're going to get that turn back. It's like you never did anything, which is very awesome. So you get damage, and then status ailment removal. Quick Slash, this is a very early game one. You'll easily be able to come into this. The damage isn't that great, but that's not the point of this card. The point of this card is for setups. Knockbacks are very important in this game. You can knock somebody into an ether barrel or some sort, and then it'll blow up 3 or 4 people. If this card happens to kill somebody, it has quick, so it's going to refund you that turn. So loading up a character with quick cards, I feel like is essential. You could probably do a build where nobody uses quick, but it just seems so weird to not run quick because eventually they're going to try to put a whole bunch of minions on the field to make you stress uh, either having AOE stuff or to challenge assassins because assassins do high damage, but it usually only hits one person. So you want to be able to deal with multiple people, and that's why Quick Slash and Holy Spark is so good. But what Quick Slash has that Holy Spark doesn't have is Quick Slash is going to knock that person, the primary target, into wherever you want in a cone. So I highly recommend this. I chose the redraw upgrade for this because I believe the other upgrade it wasn't anything great where I could still use the card. So I chose to get the extra redraw whenever I play it. Because being able to dismiss certain cards that you can't make use of, say if you pull a whole bunch of team combo cards or high level heroics, but you don't have any heroism build yet, you can discard those for now and pick them up later on in the fight. So it's definitely good to have some redraws on you. Fortify is one of the best defensive cards I've seen for the main character. So you're going to apply 2 counters to yourself, and then you're also going to gain block. And this will scale up as you level up, which is awesome because you can also upgrade it to add some extra status effects like drawing a card. Uh, so every time I use this, I get the block, I get 2 counters, and then I get to draw a card as well. So this is very good because if you stack passive, if you get resilience, and there's another passive I want to talk about later on, you will get you'll get to the point where enemies will start to try to jump you, and you'll be taking no damage at all. And if you do take damage, they'll have to damage your block bar before they can actually get to your health bar. And that's what makes this card so crazy because whenever you combine it with guarding strike, you are most likely never going to get damage with your actual health bar. Because with Guarding Strike, as long as this card is in your hand, you regenerate block. So each turn, you're going to gain a fixed amount of block. I'm getting 75 right now. And if you were to just hold on to this card, it has some pretty good damage. So if you do want to just execute somebody, I say use it. But if you can wait long enough to fortify while keeping guarding strike in there, it's going to be nigh impossible for enemies to do any damage to your actual health bar, if even your block. Because when your resilience is high, you'll resist damage, period. Like they'll hit you and your character will get ragdolled or something, but whenever you get up, you'll see that there's no red numbers, and then a green shield will pop up and it'll say resisted, and you'll take no damage. So highly recommend taking Guarding Strike and Fortify together, especially if you want some sort of bruiser, sustain damage sort of build, because this is the more tankier mechanics of the Hunter. You can also get a modification where it does an extra 108 damage to people that are blocking. This is how you deal with those annoying riot shield people as the main character, at least for the light side abilities. You one activate from this will completely annihilate their entire shield thing. So if you're ever doing supply runs or you're trying to capture an agent, this will stop them from guarding whatever they're guarding, or just having that riot shield to do all those annoying shield bashes. You can just instantly one shot that with guarding strike, or keep it to keep your health extra tanky. Uh, Next is heal. Heal is very straightforward. You're going to be able to throw a heal towards yourself or your teammates, and this will scale up as you level up for how much you can heal. And then you'll be able to add an effect where you can draw 2 cards from overhealing people, which is, I thought wouldn't be very useful, but if you know somebody who's took a fair amount of damage and you can predict that they're going to take even more on the following turn, using this is perfect because not only will you heal them to max, but you'll draw 2 cards that might change the entire combat situation from dire to now a more comfortable, favorable situation for you. So highly recommend doing this. It also applies to resist. To resist is very good because you're not likely to take any negative status effects anymore, and you may even block the next two attacks, meaning no damage, not getting that blue bar, but not taking anything at all. So highly recommend getting healed. Even if you're going for a full damage build, you should probably at least have heal because heal can get you out of so many annoying situations. Especially when you're constantly dealing with the numbers game in here. Because typically speaking, you can only have four, maybe five people on your side, and that's through the access of other cards. So you only get to have three people. Meanwhile, the enemy can have like up to 10, I think, people I've seen on the field, potentially more. Getting into one of the really crazy offensive heroics for the light side of building your hunter is Holy Burst. This is absolutely my favorite move to do, and it's because if you can upgrade one of the passive statistics to increase your AoE, you'll find yourself able to delete five, maybe even six people, especially if they're minions, because minions get one shotted by everything anyway. But Holy Burst is some decent damage because it's starting in like the hundreds or like the late 90s, and it continues to scale up as you scale up. So it's going to do AoE damage to everyone that's an enemy, and it's going to heal all your teammates. So this is a good move to support your tankier people like Captain Marvel, Captain America, Wolverine, and the Hulk, or anybody who's just all in basically. You're going to heal them while damaging the enemy. So it's a very good move to pick up. Honestly, I could see you probably skipping over this if you wanted the other assassin move for the Hunter Tree Fury, but Holy Burst only requires it also only requires two heroic energy points, but it's not the final thing that you'll do in your turn, and that's why I took off Fury because I used to run Fury, but I didn't like how it had to be the last thing I did, and 216 is a good bit of damage, but having this end up as the final thing you're going to do for your turn is definitely a very strategic way of playing it because that means you want to use this last. You want to make sure that's the last thing you're doing. And Holy Burst is something you can open up with and drop a bunch of people or just support your teammates very well. It also has a 50% chance to apply one bleed. This is very good for bosses or very healthy single target enemies because bleed damage in this game hits like a truck. It's not like anything subtle. It's very noticeable when you have bleed on you. I very much hate getting hit with bleed. Patience. This is I've heard from shout out to Sodding Superhero that this is the best light hunter ability that you can use, or maybe it's just the best damage hunter ability you can use. Maybe not necessarily light, because in the picture I see a dark sword there. But either way, this will do more damage than Fury and Holy Burst in anything I've seen thus far. We got 540 right now, single target, and it's going to apply two marked once you modify it, and then when you upgraded it, I believe it gives you exhaust. So basically, you're going to use six heroism to deal the maximum amount of damage your character can possibly deal. I typically use this to one shot bosses. If you've been watching my streams, I've one shotted Venom, Scarlet Witch, I believe even maybe even Sabretooth at one point. I'm not 100% because there's so many side missions where bosses show up too, but it's capable of one shotting them. I mean, it has 540 DPS on it, and most bosses are floating around late 300s, maybe 400s, potentially scaling up after that. But this move scales with them. So even if you do not kill the boss with this move, they're going to be vulnerable for the next few attacks. So whatever health they have left over, which isn't going to be much, you're going to be able to take them out with that stuff. So highly recommend getting patience. The acquisition of this move just requires you to continue to play through the story. It's not necessarily like a light or dark path. Just continue to play, and if you see something that's like you're going to get an epic hunter card for doing it, complete whatever that task is. So helping heroes, opening gamma cores, and progressing through the story, you'll run into patience. So 100% get this, and then whenever you get duplicates, upgrade this one and mod it as soon as possible. And that'll basically be the rundown of all the cards you'll be using. And as for the passives, I've never changed from fully charged and actually stayed committed to changing. The other passives aren't bad, but it's just that fully charged is so good. So you gain one resist, or you generate one heroism at the beginning of the turn. So generating heroism is great because if you have people that are using crazy AoE abilities to one shot their way through crowds, you need heroism as much as possible. So potentially generating it a turn is great. Gaining one resist is also very great because if a boss is targeting you or there's a bunch of enemies that decide they're going to attack your character on that turn, you'll just block all the damage. And this is what I was talking about when I was saying that you need blocking strike um, with guarding strike, or sorry, fortify with guarding strike, because fortify will increase your block and it'll let you counter, and guarding strike will let you regenerate guard every turn that you don't use that card. So you're constantly regenerating your blue bar. This passive is stopping you from taking any damage at all, and Fortify is giving you a fixed amount of block whenever you activate it, plus the counter. So it's like they work like in tandem together. They're so perfect together. I can't see myself ever getting rid of this because there are missions where I don't even lose my blue bar. Whenever I take real damage, I'm like, oh wow, they actually got to my real health. But even if they do get to my real health, it doesn't matter because I have Holy Flame to heal myself, I have Cure to heal myself, and I even have Holy Burst. So it's very hard to get rid of a character with this much sustain and situational damage, and that's why I love fully charged. So highly recommend running fully charged. And then for your collar passive, any of these can be great. For a while, I did use Paragon Collar because you're able to get a card used for free. However, you have to use 5 light cards, and that's pretty steep to be asking. So you have to be committed to the light path to really get mileage out of Paragon Collar. Um, but getting you to use a card for free basically means it doesn't use any of your 3 player turns. So it's basically, think of it as like your items. It doesn't cost you a player turn to use something, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. Like you can Holy Burst for free. Um, Balance Collar, this one lets you draw 2 extra cards. There's a lot of effects where you can draw 2 extra cards with other stuff. So this one seemed lackluster to me, but at the same time, it's not, because if you wanted to use a different mod for your cards, you could go that route and then just put this collar on to help yourself have a better way of drawing more cards. Um, but I personally think Ivory Collar is the way to go. And it's because you only have to play 3 light cards in combat, and then the next card that you use that is an attack card is not discarded. And the way I like to use the Ivory Collar is for Quick Slash and Holy Spark. So Quick Slash and Holy Spark are the Hunter abilities that let you take an enemy down, and then the turn is refunded to you. That's this one and this one. So if your Ivory Collar card appears in your hand, you'll activate that first. Then you'll do your Holy Spark or your Quick Slash, and you'll get that card back. And it'll actually physically never leave your hand because of the Ivory Collar passive says that the card used does not get discarded. And to me, that is very OP because if there's a bunch of enemies like on the map, like minions, you can just you can knock potentially with Quick Slash 2 people together. So that's a kill right there. The card doesn't move because you had Ivory Collar. You could do that again and have 4 people dead with the usage of only, 2 cards. And then in reality, the actual player turns that you used is 0 because it was a quick card. So it gets refunded to you twice, and it didn't leave your hand for two actions. Excuse me. So highly recommend doing that. It's very cheesy in the early game. You can just spam this out for free. I highly recommend doing that. This is pretty much the rundown of how I got my hunter going so far. There may be an update once I get my light balance to 200. I have it at 173. I suspect I'll be able to finish that before the weekend's out or sometime midway through next week. Statistically speaking, I wanted to touch on this, but this is not something related to your cards. This is relating to your help heroes, mainly from what I've seen. So whenever you see somebody around the Abbey and it says help hero, think about what it is that you want for your character. So if you noticed you're not critting often, you should be choosing any decision that they're asking you to do for crit chance. And then if you want to make sure your crits are actually hitting hard, naturally hit critical chance damage. Fortitude will increase the percentage of your maximum health granted as block. This is going to be very important for people who want to be tanky or bruiser like. They want to be able to take some punishment. So you'll need to choose that whenever you're doing help heroes. And sometimes it's as simple as giving somebody a gift, taking them on a mission. Highly recommend stopping what you're doing to do all of those little passive benefits to your hunter, because this is how you get to a point where it's like nobody can really deal with you unless you have bosses and lieutenants jumping you with a whole bunch of minions. And in reality, it just doesn't happen that way because your character's threat level, it feels like it's balanced, the threat level in this game. Nobody just solely goes for you unless you have some sort of taunt ability. And we don't have one on this build. So we're like a tank, a healer, a DPS, and an assassin, without committing to each path to where you get the negatives out of it. It's almost like a jack of all trades build, actually. So highly recommend going for Fortitude. Resilience is another thing you want to get up, because this is going to stop you from getting negative status effects. You don't want a whole bunch of those on. It makes the gameplay super hard, especially if it's like if your character's weak, because you'll take more damage to the next incoming attacks. Confuse is a really bad one as well, because you'll actually attack your other teammates. That's not great either. So you definitely want to get resilience up. Strength is great because it'll let you increase your knockback distance. That'll give you more worth out of quick slash. And there's other light abilities like there's a light ability that's like the dark whip, where you just get to whip somebody across the map to do X amount of damage, depending on who they collide with. So strength is the knockback amplifier. So you definitely want to get that up, because knockbacks in this game are crucial as well. That's why I have at least one in this build. And then willpower will increase the percentage of your maximum health recovered at the start of each turn. So definitely want to try to make sure you're going for these. A little bit of everything, to be honest, as you're progressing through the story. Uh, be careful though with those help heroes, because sometimes I have picked darkness things so that I can get extra crit chance or crit damage, but I was only making light decisions through conversational pieces and then through ability spamming in combat. That's how I outweighed that. And it's very easy to do. You don't have to stress the light and dark decisions, even if you're somebody who's trying to do it for a teammate's approval. Just make sure you do those help hero things. I cannot stress that enough. They give you so many like passive statistics that makes your character impossible to deal with. I hope you guys enjoyed this build video. It's a very weird style for me. I'm not used to it functioning in the system of cards. I hope it was straightforward. If there was anything that I wasn't clear about, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the build video, or what I could be more clear on for the next ones. And let me know what you've done differently with your hunter. Did you go complete damage and try to forego healing? What did you do differently with your light build? I'm curious to hear about people's darkness builds as well, as I hear that it's a very risky play style, and but the damage is very rewarding. So I'm curious to get into that. And subscribe if you're new. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Thank you guys, and I will catch you guys in the next build video.